we really reached a point where people wanted to buy that, a kind of a prototype that absolutely didn't work. For instance, Timon said to the worker, that works with speech command. You can say next, and then it goes to the next. And then you saw the worker next. And Timon in the background on the keyboard, push.
That's brilliant.
It was very easy to build that. I was like,
I mean, that's literally the man behind the curtain.
Hi everyone, another episode of Go HandsFree. Today, what have we got, James?
A few days ago we had the founder, Dr. Chris Parkinson, and today we've got the other founders, Timon and Sebastian from Almer, who RealWear have just acquired. So we had a great deep dive on their origin story, their device, all the different kind of pitfalls and journey that they went through from going from the early prototypes to the Arc 2. Yeah, great stuff.
All right, let's go jump in and have a listen. Hello everybody, another episode of Go HandsFree with me and Mr. Woodall. And today we've got Sebastian and Timon, who I'm sure everybody knows by now. But guys, welcome to the pod. Thank you for having us on, and welcome to RealWear as well, I guess, right?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
This has been a long time coming, and I think we're all super happy to bring this together. Me and James did a pod a couple of weeks ago talking about the acquisition when it happened. We kind of shared our mutual happiness at bringing the two companies together. So, yeah, James, do you want to kick us off with anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we extended the invite to you guys, and we're very, very grateful that you've accepted. So good to see you. I mean, in reality, compared to, let's say, George and myself, you guys are actually quite new to this business. Why, of all the businesses that you could have gotten into, why this? I mean, what's the origin story behind, Almer Technologies, all of that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say relatively not so new, actually, because I did research in 3D computer vision, so I did an algorithm in China that ended up in ARKit at Apple. That was already interesting because that's kind of the maximum scale you can get on planet Earth, and the solar system is kind of having something deployed on every single iPhone. And then during COVID, I had to come back to Switzerland and ended up at kind of sort of doing stuff for HoloLens. And there I just saw that kind of at Facebook Reality Lab it was still called Facebook back then. Now Meta Reality Labs and other guys also from Apple, it was pretty clear in this kind of industry, everyone knows each other. And it was pretty clear that Apple is also going to do a bigger device. And it was just kind of then the feeling that, hey, those huge clunky devices, that can't be the case. But in general, the technology is very important that this happens, because I strongly believe that it's very important that many humans and society in general have access to this sort of interface, right? Because it's in the end an interface to access more information and kind of now intelligence also in a very easy and effortless way. And if we don't have great interfaces, well, there's some sort of decoupling that's going to happen between machines and humans. And then only very few humans will control a lot of machines, so to say, and the rest of society becomes basically irrelevant from an economic point of view. And that's very, very bad to happen, especially in democracies. And so we need to have a great interface, that there's no decoupling, and that actually the whole society is lifted up to a more productive and better state in general. And because of those bigger guys all making huge ass devices that are not really attractive, and I was sure that no one is going to wear that, we kind of said, hey, if they are not doing it, it's kind of someone needs to do it. If they don't do it, we need to do it. It's our duty to society. Even if it's not clear and the odds are against us, it's our duty to do it. so we did it.
And when you say we did it, was this your first startup, your first company, or had you been through the experience before to say or be confident to go and do it?
I mean, actually, at the beginning, we didn't even plan to do a company. We planned to do more a research project that is kind of open sourced and as a standard that others can build upon that, and kind of advance there. It's just the university basically said, well, it's too applied already. You can't make papers out of it. So, well, we don't give you funding. And then we were just looking for alternative ways to fund it. And that's basically over a company. That was the thing. Company-wise, I mean, I worked in other companies beforehand, and my family, like from my father's side, they're all entrepreneurs. My uncle is a entrepreneur, my father, my grandfather. So there's some sort of, I wouldn't say tradition there, but at least you have some sort of experience that it's not a walk in the park. But yeah, in the end,
did you two start this together at the same point, or you know?
I mean, pretty much. I would say Timon came into the play very, very, very early on. So basically, when I made the decision, okay, let's make a company out of that, then I knew, okay, now I really need great people to pull that off. And normally great people work with other great people. And I knew Timon from university and knew him very well. We did the first all-nighters together. And so I had a lot of trust in him, and I got to know that he's a great guy, but not only fun guy to be with and hang around, but also someone who gets shit done. And normally those people work with other great people. And so I called him up and said, hey, Timon, and we didn't speak for a long time together.
Yeah, for a very long time, actually, now.
Yeah. I still would like to see you recorded the video.
We made a video when we had the first discussion. So when we discussed exactly that, we went into like, what are you doing? How about I have this great project? How about someone? And I think, right, Sebastian, that's where you would have continued and be like, well, I was like, I mean, why not? I was applying for some jobs. We were still both doing university at the same time. And we're like, I mean, yeah, theoretically we're studying, but COVID just hit. So there was a lot of free time. And our, let's say, personality type, at least mine, led to just watching the videos online, accelerated speed as fast as you can. And then you have a lot of free time, even while you're doing your master's. So I was like, yeah, why not? I'm joining in. And so since there it was a bumpy long ride.
Have you got you say you still got the recording?
Yeah, I still have it somewhere. I need to pick up it somewhere on my hard drive, hidden away. Yeah, I have it somewhere.
I think that would be
one of the other episodes. We might be able to show that. I had long hair. I mean, longer than now. But
yeah, quite a long time ago. But I want to point that out, and I'm actually really still very, very honored from that, because Timon had a couple of job interviews, and even the next day, and I think he canceled all of them and was just on the phone call. We didn't hear each other for years, and he was like, and I just was calling her, I have this crazy project. I have no money, but I need you, or I need anyone that is great. And Timon was just like, okay, I cancel all my job interviews. I can start next week. It's like,
wow,
boom.
So then from that point, you've got the idea, you've got the passion, you've got a very small team, and then like, can you give us a bit of a quick synopsis of like that startup journey, that 3 years? Because that must have been super fun to go through that, like pretty rapid growth curve. Like you ticked a lot of the boxes in terms of like raising money, getting a product to market, selling it, getting some big partnerships, getting some good coverage, and then getting an exit. So like everyone loves that kind of startup story. So like if you could try and tell us that story in 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I think what is important to note, right, is that what you just mentioned, those points are all the upsides, and a lot of people don't necessarily are that interested in the down, or like the downturns and the lows. And you definitely also have a lot of those. But in general, I think what was at the beginning very important, is that Timon then started, then we got an innovation project and that was actually also what really said, okay, now we have enough resources to kind of fully start. I quit my job. And then basically, I think what was very important also is that at the beginning, we actually kind of did prototyping with kind of really Raspberry Pi on a helmet. Timon did a lot of that. And that was great because we really reached a point where people wanted to buy that, a kind of a prototype that absolutely didn't work. For instance, Timon said to the worker, that works with speech command. You can say next, and then it goes to the next. And then you saw the worker next, and Timon in the background on the keyboard, push.
That's brilliant.
It was very easy to build that. I was like,
I mean, that's literally the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, and they really then wanted to buy that already. And we were like, no, you can't buy Timon, that doesn't work out. But we can build you something. And that gave us, I think, quite some confidence that, okay, there's actually something that, yeah, it makes sense. And I think that was very valuable that we had early on already exchanges with customer before we even had a product that somewhat worked. I really like that. I wouldn't even call that an MVP. I call that a maximum Scotch product. It's really like glued together, and it was falling apart all the time. We had to stitch it together a few minutes before we showed it, and then once we showed it, it fell apart again. But it allowed us to learn very quickly, super early on, exactly what was needed. And I think we kept this mentality across the whole journey.
Oh, nice. I think you've got Timon. Have you got any of those slides that you can show that you showed us a few days ago?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I guess we can also do that. We can
let's
share
show
that.
That's
we
a
can
good
share
one.
that and go through that. Okay, let me a second. I pull that up here.
Yeah,
Just while you do that, those early customers, like how important were they? I mean, like me and James have been through the startup journey ourselves, and like those early customers are just so important, right? In terms of validating the market. And you mentioned using Scotch tape to prototype, but getting those rapid validation points, like how many of those did you manage to get, and how quickly did you manage to get them?
So we iterated very fast, right? Insanely fast. I guess we had like one day, and the next day we had something completely different. So it was very quick turnarounds. I think we can show it with the images. I think it's a little bit easier to understand. And then while that, I guess we can also go a little bit through the journey. Now there might be some weird images on here, but let's see what we got.
That's what we're all waiting for, Timon.
I think Sebastian shared this one already. That's when we started. So all the way in the beginning, 2021, we didn't really have desks yet. They were like, we don't need a lot. I think I brought the camping chairs, then we had Sebastian, you brought the box from the TVs, from the screens I think we had.
Yeah, we just ordered some screens, and then
there was a box, so we have a cable, I guess.
That was delivered with that contained the screens. We just turned it around.
Is that the same room that you're in now?
Yeah,
there was at the same. Oh wow! So the same office even from back then.
I mean, that was actually a great deal. I think in the story of Almer, we did a few great deals, and that was definitely also a great deal because it was during COVID. The office rent was insanely cheap, and you guys know it. It's very central. We would not ever be able to afford something like that in normal conditions. So.
It's crazy. This is only 3 years ago. When you say this is 2021, it's crazy how quick you've gone from this. And to be honest, on that first picture, you've got a cardboard box as a desk, but you look like you've blown all the budget on curved monitors. Like that looks like a serious expense.
They were the cheapest ones, I think. We were like, okay, we need. It was still like full HD, like get a bigger screen, the biggest we can get for the lowest price. I think by accident they were curved as well. What we needed this to move them up and down so we can have the laptop below, but it was doing the job. We got some normal desks afterwards. And then quite quickly, right? I think these were the first picture during the innovation projects.
That was actually a few weeks later already.
Yeah, that was just a few weeks later, actually.
Well, you've got fully assembled desks. I mean, you're moving up in the world.
Yeah, we felt very big corporate already. Like we made it. We made it to an actual desk.
Hang on, is that in the background? Is that San Pellegrino water as well?
Yes, it is actually.
I mean, if you thought the budget was going on the curved monitors, it's completely blown.
Go to the water now. Right. So I think that was most of the resources we got there. They were the resources we had through the project wasn't just money. It was worth a lot of money, but it was mainly credits to pay others to help us.
Yeah.
And so that were part of the others and some part of the early employees that then really helped to push this along, right? We couldn't have not done this. We had a lot of different knowledge and quite quickly 10 people helping that actually brought something to more realistic value. But so it also started to be tidied up a little bit. We have a 3D printer very early. The early industrial designers, we had a very good guy, Lucas, who worked together with us. He made a lot of great sort of mindset boards to understand in what direction you would want to go, right? We'll see it afterwards, but what we wanted to do and what we ended up doing was not always the same thing. I guess from a vision perspective, we'll love to come back to what we wanted to do once everything is ready. I guess we might talk about that more when it comes to vision.
Closer than ever to that.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes better and better. But back in the days, it wasn't clear at all how a device will look like, right? We can go quickly afterwards why we chose that now, but it was completely different, right? So we started with optics. So it was like, it's a little bit different to what RealWear does now, or what we did back in the days and still do, is where we needed to build an optical system. Now Sebastian and me, we had optical courses. We knew all the optical basics. I think I had 2 semester courses in that and some other friends as well. And we had a lot of guys that helped us a lot in the beginning that knew much more about that, right? Working on CMAX and optimizing. But it was really just 3D print in the beginning.
Absolutely. I think because we had quite close connections to professors at the Swiss Institute of Technology, we could really source like top people. And that was always hard to motivate them, but we motivated them because it's a cool, fun project. Yeah. We never paid them because we never even tried to, because they were absolutely crazy. In the end, one guy that was helping us in the optics system, he was also in Cambridge doing nanophotonics, PhD, crazy shit. So yeah, I think without this closeness, we would also never have gotten it. But what Timon points out, right, we had the base knowledge to know what is needed and direct them in a direction that is not absolutely crazy, and kind of tease them to actually, and challenge them to take part in it.
Because right in the end, innovation in this sense, it was much more good decision on what to do and what not to do. And like, do we want to go for waveguide? What do we want to do, right? In the end, what we figured out rather quickly was, I was together with Lars in the beginning. So he helped us a lot.
Lars is one of those guys, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. And so very quickly we got to something that adequately worked. Let's see, I think we have a bit. That was when we first had sort of an image. Now, I don't know.
It was still the single lens.
Yeah, the first time we had some kind of a beam splitter and the lens to somehow see some kind of an image. It doesn't even load properly, but yeah, you get the sense. It was just 3D printed all over the place, but sort of there was an image. And then after that, we created this helmet that Sebastian talked about beforehand. It was just Raspberry Pi stuff, like, we need a camera, we need some kind of a display, let's somehow connect it. And we could just 3D print different parts every day, basically. It was just constantly printing. And then we also just I'll just make some intermediate connector, just quickly swap pieces out and put something else. Had optics from the top. Then I think later we moved to, it was still from the top, from the side. We mounted phone on the top to do team calls, which actually worked very well. So some Android phone, you could just plug in over USB-C an external display, and then you have AR. Well,
wow. Yeah, I can definitely see the Scotch tape at play in a couple of those images.
Yeah, definitely. This is Scotch everywhere.
But these were like real customers you were working with to validate these ideas. So you weren't just in a glass house with engineers making assumptions. You were getting out in the field and actually really, really validating this with true frontline workers, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we learned, for instance, and was pretty interesting, is because especially in the mixed reality world, everyone is crying for a larger field of view. But actually the frontline workers, they don't want a larger field of view. Yeah. We even showed them too large field of view. We realized 30 degree is even too large, basically, and they want to have it smaller. And really the most important thing is not distracting them from doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Then additional information is nice, but they'd rather have smaller displays but very good image quality. That's one of the learnings, for instance, that is very tangible, and we were surprised.
Exactly. So that where we did tests, since we could do quick iteration, we just do, let's show them 20 degree diagonal field of view, 25, 30. just test out what they want. And what it turns out, exactly as Sebastian said, it's in the end it was the pixel density that made most of the difference. So we have, or I'm not sure what the next images are. So yeah, it's a little bit buggy. They also did assembly using the device. It doesn't really load. So actually step by step doing assembly and everything. Of course, it was guided with speech commands, keyboard in the background. I think I was just visible very quickly. But it worked very well, right?
How did the software layer evolve? Like, how did you ensure? Because obviously, there's lots of hardware components and ergonomic design going on here. But then, how did you amalgamate that with good software design? Did you have software engineers in the business building UX and looking at the components that were that needed to work together, or were you more focused on the hardware?
I mean, at the beginning, definitely more on the hardware, and actually the software was really just a PowerPoint presentation that Timon showed, and we went through with the keyboard in the background. That's how it works, actually. And then, so also design-wise, we always looked at it from a holistic perspective, not hardware, software separated, but actually, okay, it's a new device. It's completely needs to be rethought. And that's also what Lucas from the InnoSwiss project, what Timon mentioned already, did. He didn't only look at the device itself, although he spent a lot of time on that, but he looked on the whole concept overall at actually what is this device even doing, because it's completely different. It needs new interaction concept, all those things, and there it's actually hardware, software, very tight interplay. And it's really hard if you start from scratch in something that is completely new.
Got it.
Yeah, so right, that led us to sort of what we had. And we showed that very early in the beginnings to investors. Once we had some optics, it was very, very good. So so the images that were taken were actual images. And you can see a little bit what the difference is, right? It's very hard to show to the viewer how it looks like. But what we had, we had a very, very high pixel density. So pixel density was around 100. It still is. So full HD display spread over 2022 diagonal field of view. The choices we made in optics led to no chromatic aberrations in general, almost no aberrations in general. Very slight distortion, but almost nothing, and very sharp image with no light loss in the corners. And it's very different if you look to what they were used to seeing at Vuzix, for example, or even a HoloLens, right? Of course, it's not really fair, right? They don't have the same field of view and the same capabilities. But when it comes to sheer capability of what you can read and how nice it looks, it made quite of a difference, right? So we also have an OLED screen. So if you compare it with LCOS on the Google Glass, for example, you don't have this square box around, but you actually see only the parts you want to have visible. And so black pixel actually are see-through. So, right, we can spend a lot of time here, but then we got some funding.
Yeah, I think that's also, this also shows the kind of October 2021. Like, so when we started, like I poured in all my personal money I had, and it got us until October. And so we started off with the knowledge, okay, we can make it until October, but not further, basically. And I think that's this mindset of, okay, we'll see, and maybe we level up. This continued for us until now, and is, I think, very helpful in a startup environment where you have a lot of uncertainty, that you see it kind of as a, not game, but kind of as a, okay, let's make the best out of it attitude, and not be worried. I think other people might be worried to even start if it's not clear that you can even make it for 10 years. And
it was clearly not clear, right? We were always joking around. It's like, yeah, let's say August, we're probably dead. And then, oh, okay, some more money. Then maybe end of the year. And then, some more. And it never ended.
Was this your first check? This was your first almost round of investment?
That's when we came together and put some more money together. When we swapped from GmbH to AG in Switzerland, you needed 100,000. That's when that came about. It was just fun. Like it's these kind of details that we thought were quite nice, right? And then going forward, it came more into, okay, maybe a helmet isn't a thing, right? Let's go to something else. We did a lot of back and forth. Not spend too much time on this. The optics look completely different. We also had a nose piece, which very quickly, and I think Sebastian and me, we were on the weekend once. We were like, this can't be it. Like, you can't wear your own glasses below. Everyone told us. So it was like, okay, let's go to a strap. We just broke off the the hinges and the side, and just like, okay, let's add a strap. I mean, why anything else? And so sort of got in this direction.
Yeah, we actually had breakfast together on a Sunday in the office. We were just talking about it, and then while having breakfast, we just started cutting things off, gluing other things
Yeah,
on.
a GoPro strap with some hot glue.
Yeah,
very well.
Went back home quickly to get his GoPro. We cut the GoPro apart, glued it on it, and then the next day on Monday we showed it to customers. Do you want this nice refined first version of the glasses, or do you want this glued stitched together thing? And then 100% of the customers immediately wanted the glued stitched together thing, and that was a pretty clear sign.
So we didn't really have any paddings and anything else. That was afterwards. So this is a little bit later. I think that was a few months after. Quite a lot of months afterwards. Where you can see a little bit the inner workings, right? We have the batteries on the side. This is sort of how the ARC 1 looked like. The optical system was a little bit smaller. We realized more over the way that we need a bigger eye box. That again, field of view isn't just it. It was more it that you want to be well aligned even if you're not well aligned. So that was much more important. So we increased that later. We also didn't have.
What's with the transparent? Was that just a design?
That was just Game Boy wise. We just wanted to make one like that.
Right. Okay.
It's kind of pretty much the same price if you just inject different color, and then
got it.
So we had a fun one. Yeah.
One of the mechanical engineers made that as a surprise, and actually people liked it a lot.
It was still lighter, and I think that's a little bit the sad thing. We gained some weight on the device, so it was around 130 grams. Back then, but then obviously we realized later on as well, running other applications, that we might need to increase the battery capacity. We need to have speakers, so now the speakers are in here. So we thought, I think that was maybe some of the, I don't want to say mistakes, but we didn't really have that on the radar. We thought, Bluetooth, everyone has Bluetooth headphones, you can connect with that, which is true, but very important for us, it was this intuitive and effortless and really get out of the box experience. So you just don't want to pair your headphones first, you just want to use it straight. And specifically for video calls and others, then we added later on speakers as well. And then we had, obviously, even earlier we had paying customers, but we had this first ARC 1 also actually delivered, and some paying. And actually, even the ones we saw all the way in the beginning with the helmet, they're still a customer, actually.
Yeah,
so it's actually quite great.
We had paying customers super, super early on. And that is another thing I would immediately do again, because one thing is to test it with customers, but hey, everyone tells you it. Yeah, I mean, do you want something free? Yeah, sure, I take it. But as soon as they're starting to pay, the feedback gets very real, and kind of they start complaining, and that's the point where you need to be as quickly as possible to get actual feedback and move on.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so from that, then we had a little bit later on, we still already had production first batches into the hundreds, right? Not yet in the thousands, but it went towards this direction. I think actually this is even a picture out of 1,000 even.
And this is assembly in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, that's in Switzerland, exactly. So that's there's also Thomas, one of our mechanical engineer, where we went about. So the engineers actually they built the device together. We did it all in-house, right? We didn't have any ODM or anyone doing anything. And since we needed to build for production, injection, and assembly, we sort of, I don't want to say forced, but we got them to also assemble the device, which really helped that then they also optimized for assembly. We were like, oh no, the first few units they did, they were like, oh my, that's crazy. I can't assemble 100 like this. So, okay, then change it. But really helped optimizing to get something properly produced, right?
And we're still in the kind of ARC 1 days at this point. Or have we moved to ARC 2?
No, so actually it's a little bit mixed up. So this is ARC 2 already. But that was the story now I'm telling is ARC 1 only. Of that. In ARC 2, it was pretty well done already. We had all the learnings on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So at this point, it was much more smooth.
And where's this facility? Where did you, because this doesn't look like the same office that Sebastian sat in now.
No, it's right. Yeah. So we used an external company that helped us with that, also with the resources. We didn't want to hire so many people to then just fire again. But it's still in Switzerland. It's around an hour away from us, but it's in Switzerland, so it's very easy to just go there and go back and forth.
Perfect.
So the device is fully made in Switzerland as we speak. And then now again, this image might not be perfectly in order. We had the TeamViewer investment. that arrived quite after. That was early 2023. I think the discussion started end of 2022. Then the investment was made.
That was actually also a funny story because they actually reached out to us in, I think, December. And we're like, oh, cool, collaboration. Okay, yes. And they were like, yeah, what about acceleration and investment? And I was like, no. And I hang
No.
up the call.
Wow.
And we're like, okay, we have other investors. And no, thanks.
Everyone was like, strategic investor, dangerous. And we were like, yeah, we can't do that. It's too dangerous. So we said no. But then later we were like,
Hang up the
okay, maybe
call.
it's still a good idea. Not because we needed them, but then a lot of other people were like, what? They wanted to invest and you said no? It's like, okay, let's go back. And then,
And then I think one move that was pretty smart from Hendrik, actually, he invited us to their office, basically. And that's, I think, the point where it convinced us, because he got the team over, like all of them came, and we're like, okay, that's actually cool. And they know their shit. And we also really liked that Hendrik, for instance, himself was just trying out the Arc. He came in, asked someone to load the TeamViewer app on it and test it out. And he tested it out immediately himself in front of everyone. And that was I think, that impressed us. And we were like, okay, we want to work with that team.
I think that looks like the Bremen office. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that
yes,
right?
exactly. That's in Bremen, exactly. And so that was still the Arc 1, which we always thought, I mean, stuff isn't really entirely ready yet, right? But to our surprise, right, that's also when we first started with their application on our device, and it worked flawlessly, which I guess that's the greatness of the early Android. Just APKs just run if you do it sort of properly. There were some issues, obviously, but they really realized, like, okay, we have the navigators. I think back then it was HMT1, and they had the Vue6, and they're like, oh, this is a great additional device, which is right. We can show you obviously afterwards. It's more compact. It's different markets. So they really wanted that, and so that's how it then got sort of kickstarted. And
I think this is when I think this is probably when Almer registered on the RealWear radar, right? We suddenly then saw you guys, and we were like, "Who's Almer? We better do some research here."
I think it was even a year later, actually,
It was a little
because
later.
they made the investment in spring 2023, and actually really on the radar. I think it became at the beginning of this year, 2024, when we announced the partnership officially to everyone, or maybe in like December 2023. But they actually made the investment, and then in spring, and then we kicked off basically to collaboration really only in summer properly, and kind of really launching the first products to our internal customers in September to December. And I think that's when Chris the first time heard of Almer from TeamViewer.
But you might have heard earlier. I don't know, George and James, might actually be a good question. When did you hear? Right, you might have heard earlier.
Yeah, I heard from a partner, and I started to get partners saying, "Hey, have you heard about this Almer thing that's coming up? Something's going on with them and TeamViewer. You guys should be aware of it." And that's how I came about. I don't know when the actual date was, but yeah, then straight on LinkedIn, I was like, "Who's this Sebastian and Timon guy? This looks kind of it's a bit scary. We should probably be aware of it." So I think there was an element of like us being aware, but of course, you know, we knew it was available in Europe only and things like that. So it was being monitored, but I don't think it seemed until the TeamViewer thing happened. I don't think we probably took it as seriously as maybe we should have done. I mean, obviously, all's well that ends well now, but there was definitely a few nervous moments for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so continuing that, right, we can quickly show. So I think very early on, vision, I think specifically also Sebastian, the idea was still to do something B2C very early on. Then we also realized, it's probably not the time yet. Also hard with industry partner. And then we also let that to have someone use it directly and actually add more value in the space where TeamViewer was located. It was just more to grab. So it went into different iterations. I think we had, that was sort of before Arc 1, where it still was a nose piece. That was sort of the idea.
This might be an unfair comparison. I'm seeing Google Glass here, and I'm sure that's
there were some similarities.
Yeah, I mean, James, that's actually very good. I mean, remark, you know it. like the Google Glass, we studied that very extensively from an engineering perspective, also disassembled it from a user experience perspective and from an industrial design perspective. Especially engineering and industrial design perspective, this is superb. This is a super impressive feat. It was just ahead of its time. User experience was also limited by the capability of the technology of 10 years ago, basically.
Yeah. So I think we still think it's great now. I mean, looking at it from an engineering perspective, right, as Sebastian said, it's still awesome what they did. And it's almost sad to see. I mean, now with AI, and of course we don't really like the buzzwords, but with all of these technologies piped through that, it might have looked completely different if we would have turned up now. See, we have the Teams notifications here. And so actually how the iteration was then all the way to this, which is the Arc 2, it went through sort of that. So we had this very light compact, and it was like, okay, something a little bit more direction Google Glass. Then it was like, oh, we need a black version. So early ones were just painted with a pen, I guess.
We had a video that we made in the middle of the night, and we just had a white 3D print. So we took an edding and just painted it black with the edding.
As good as possible. You can still see it was pretty bad. And we have better prototypes, started to add hinges properly. Right, specifically the back part was very similar. We like the idea, perspective, design choice. We didn't have huge departments to look at different head shapes. I mean, we tried as much as we could, but this is a study on its own, which is insanely complex to not have any pressure points. It's so complex, right? Then we realized, even though this light, small version was great, like anywhere we had the technology access to make it that small. So we blew everything up. It was bigger. And then we realized around here is like, okay, nose piece needs to be adjusted. Then we had a movement in the optical system, left, right, angle, because the ears are on different heights. So a lot of movements, and then the hinges, and we're just like, it's just such a pain, while at the same time you need inserts, and it's just bad, right? To where then the strap got introduced. I mean, early versions of it, the padding was just some kind of styrofoam. To then Arc 1, so this is Arc 1, and then from here all the way to what we have today, right, which is currently out.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that where Timon and me were always pushing the engineering team very hard to have the discipline to reduce to the maximum, reduce the amount of moving parts, and strive for simplicity. And that's very hard and often requires more discipline than adding new things. But in the end, it's often way better for the user. But we push that, and you see that also over the iterations.
Yeah, we did that. I mean, right, that was not really our invention. The best part is no part. I mean, that's very famous. It's always easy said. It's not that easily done. You actually need to think out of the box and be like, okay, then maybe we need to do something completely different, right? So the movement of the optical system, left, right, and the angular, we removed when we realized that we could just increase the eye box, and then you could just slightly rotate the device. It doesn't really matter if the camera is 1 degree off axis and these kind of things. So
I'll be honest, Timon, that's the first, when I first saw your device, I think, George, I was with you, Eindhoven, TeamViewer event, and the very first thing that I noticed when I put it on was to adjust the display. You just move the headset, and coming from the RealWear side where you're adjusting the boom arm, and I think our boom arm has got a lot of kind of great advantages, but the one disadvantage is people are adjusting it, and that was quite incredible from the first time, because all the other devices, certainly that we played with up until that point, because even Google Glass, you can adjust the display ever so slightly.
Yeah, exactly.
Vuzix, you can adjust it a bit as well. Yours was the first one where you couldn't adjust it, and as somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, you immediately think, well, that's such a disadvantage. But actually, no, it's, to your point, the best part is no part. That simplicity, it makes so much sense.
Right. It also makes it easier for the user, right? I think that's still one of the drawbacks, as you mentioned, is the boom arm is so great, and I love it in a lot of ways, right? But obviously, right, as you said, some of the disadvantage, since you have 2 degrees of freedom that allow both for movement back and forth, people tend to have it maybe too far away sometimes.
Yeah.
Then they don't realize, and we even had that ourselves. Like, we were making very in the early days, we're like, this optical system is so bad, I can barely see any edges. And then only a little bit later, we realized, we're just stupid, move it closer to the head, right? And we're even engineers, so if a client doesn't figure that out, then it's very hard to not judge the system. And I think what we still like, and I love that about the Navigator, right, with HMT in general, that you can just put the image wherever you want. I think we have that as well to some extent, right? You can adjust some details, but it's obviously slightly more limited. But I think that's what we try to strive for, and yeah, that's sort of some of the advantage and disadvantage. And I think that's why it also extends so well now that we have everything in the portfolio, I guess.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't. You mentioned that. I mean, what do you see next? I mean, what are you excited about coming into RealWear? And you touch on portfolio, but where does the art go next? Obviously, there's lots of conversations going on at the minute, but like, what's your vision on tomorrow? Because you've talked about the past. Where do you see this going, and the wider macro perspective of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the exciting part, right? And especially, I think RealWear and Almer were founded with actually very similar missions and visions in mind, and that's cool. And those are to grow this market, this AR market, and give access of great tools to people, not making toys and distractions, but actually something that helps people, and grow this channel market. And that's definitely what we're very excited now. I think there's currently a lot of work behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see and need to give us some understanding and some patience, that we need to work a lot behind the scenes to get all teams aligned and all tools aligned and do our homework properly, that we can really then get go. But we definitely want to make it way easier for people to deploy apps on a variety of devices and kind of scale way more and focus actually on what's important in this market. And that's focusing on use cases and customers, and not focusing on base infrastructure problems that currently a lot of ISVs are facing. And that's sad to see, because there's so many great people doing great amount of work, but it's often duplicated. And I think we now have the ability to help the whole market to a great extent.
Yeah, you mentioned use cases. What are the? I mean, we know remote expert, right? But what else do you see as use cases? Like maybe things that are starting to come through. And obviously, you hate buzzwords, but AI, LLMs, voice.
Well, it wouldn't be a Go HandsFree podcast without talking about AI.
To talk about it at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, right, what you're building already, James, is kind of this, right? I think the holy grail in especially frontline work is that, or one of the big problems is that it's very unstructured data often.
Yeah.
And AI really can help there, because it's kind of one of the first hopes and glimpses to actually to have an automated way to structure data, actually. And that gives a lot of I think a lot of new potentials and possibilities, where AR devices are actually the best platform to go to and the best interface, because it allows us to ask in an unstructured way for structured data, or input unstructured things to structured data in a whole different way. And I mean, there were a lot of, and are still a lot of ISVs that tried to do step-by-step instructions, but in the end didn't really scale, because in the end it's a pain in the ass to do all the structured setups for one thing. So for the ones that set it up, it's a lot of work, but also for the ones that use it, then it's not what you want to do, because sometimes you want to skip, sometimes you want to have a different things that it's not in these categories necessarily captured. And now with AI, I believe that there's a big opportunity for that.
I think the dream for a long time has been to get rid of paper. And certainly, I mean, obviously, my history before RealWear is founded a work construction company. So the goal, or at least the pitch to the customers, was to get rid of the paper. But then the the positives of the paper are, to your point, about you can skip things or you don't have to do things in the right order, which from a step back, that seems like a bad thing. But actually, in reality, the world is full of grays, not quite straight lines, or, I need to check the reading for this thing, but it's just not quite ready right now. So I'll move on to the next thing. And I think software has gone very rigid, and AI allows us to maybe move more into that natural flow. We're not quite there yet, as we all know, but that's certainly the journey.
Yeah. Exactly. I think maybe also from getting rid, I wouldn't necessarily say we want to get rid of paper, because paper is a very, very powerful tool. But I think there's lots of opportunities to actually have it way more powerful than paper. I think paper is great in some extent. Sometimes I even use it myself, but there's the potential to have it way, way, way more powerful than paper, because paper's kind of syncing paper is a nightmare. And also the AR devices are the first devices that see the world exactly as I see. So it actually can complement in an automatic manner what I actually input. So that the interface becomes way more powerful, because I don't need to write by hand everything. That's the maximum interface, so to say, the bandwidth. And with AR devices, the bandwidth increases massively, because the device can actually help me to also input more things and capture my environment, and with that enlarge the bandwidth massively over, for instance, cameras and other things. And so, I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
Sounds good. So if we were to, I guess, summarize and move on, what would be, if you had to pick one thing that's happened in the last 3 years, like one highlight from both of you? So do it individually. Sebastian, what would be your highlight of the whole Almer journey? Is there one moment that stands out above all else for you?
No, actually not. I think it's the journey, right? And there's so many ups and downs and so many things. I think what is really impressive is the team and what we all went through together. And I just want to also, I think that's a big shout out to the whole team that went through it together, with so many battles, so many all-nighters, and so many great and fun moments. I think that's the best, and it's the journey. And if you actually have one moment, I think it's often you're like, finally, and then let's move on, or a short celebration. Yeah, it's cool, but the actual cool thing is the journey.
The whole collective. Yeah. That makes sense. Are you on point with that, Timon?
So I would say partially yes. I think it's pretty impressive what we did with the people we had, right? I think quite a lot of us didn't really have a lot of experience beforehand, right? A lot of us, they came straight out of university. Not only, some had obviously some jobs before, but the things we could actually accomplish with the people that we had behind us and still have, and now obviously RealWear has, was very astonishing. And I think I got surprised quite a few times when I just looked at, oh my gosh, we did all of that with these kind of people, with these kind of industries, accesses. And I think that was something that surprised me actually quite a lot. So if we look at the market, and I think we are very open about that, the AR market is clearly growing, and it's clearly going to be the future. And who knows where we can head? And I think we all know that, we all want to do that, right? This is one of the best trends you can currently be on. And in probably a few years, we will look back and be like, oh my gosh, that was the perfect time to be at the perfect place. So I think looking at that, and then looking at how we were able as a team of, I don't want to say underdogs, but yeah, we were quite underdog, get to such a position and take advantage of that while having so limited access, so limited resources, right? We might not be able to go into details, but we didn't really raise a lot of money. And all the people, they worked very hard, and we had, as Sebastian mentioned, so much fun. And I think on this side, we can quickly maybe also share one last slide, maybe to just show that as well. I think the team spirit was always awesome. So I think on what we did in the end, and how much fun we had with the people that some never did any product development, but ended up doing something so great with so little resources that actually got accepted in so many different areas, I think was very astonishing. And I still remember a lot of moments very dearly that we were like, oh my gosh, someone actually recognizes this, even though the market is so overpopulated with others that also want to try do it. And I think that also comes from an investor perspective. So many ask that, oh my, why do you do this? I mean, what if any big player is coming and doing that as well? Which, I mean, looking at it, almost every big player is trying to do it as well. Now, obviously, we're not competing in B2C yet, or at least clearly not now. These devices are B2B and it has a different focus, but nevertheless, we got to so much with so little resource, with such a great, awesome, hardworking team. And I think we were always grateful for that and always will be. So I think that would always stood out, I think.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a great place to close on, and I guess highlights the power of team, right? So we're glad that you're on our team. That's that's positive for us. So yeah, I guess thanks so much for coming on and sharing the story. I'm sure lots of people will find this really interesting.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll meet soon.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, and then we see you on the other side.
Nice. That was good.
What a story! That was super
definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad they're on our team. Like,
definitely rather in than out. Their attitude is great, and I'm looking forward to the impact that they're going to make on certainly our business.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's sit back and watch the XR industry grow.
It's going to be a good journey.
Cool. You just need to do your thing.
I need to do my thing. Yep. So thanks everyone for listening to yet another episode of Go HandsFree. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and a few other things. So please subscribe, like, tell all your friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.